أعوذ بالله من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين خاتم النبيين مولانا أبي القاسم محمد اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعلى آله الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المنتجبين أما بعد فقد قال الله سبحانه تبارك وتعالى في كتابه الكريم وقوله الحق بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم كل نفس ذائقة الموت آمنا بالله صدق الله العلي العظيم اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. My brothers, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. In this part 41, Volume 2. Today we shall discuss the recommended acts, the mustahabat, at the time of burial. Before we do that, there is one thing we need to mention with regards to exhuming a grave, opening a grave. If somebody had willed in his wasiyah to be buried somewhere and he was not buried there, for example, somebody passes away in upcountry or in Dar es Salaam or in Nairobi, and he had willed that I have to be buried in Mombasa, and he was buried not in Mombasa but in Nairobi against his will, then Islam allows one to open his grave, remove his body and rebury it in Mombasa if there is no disrespect to the body. So it is allowed to that extent to open the grave, remove the body and bury it where he had willed to be buried. Of course, the expenses of all this burial should come out from his estate. Not that somebody else should bear for the cost of the flight and whatever. It should come from the cost of the person who is dead. Right. During the burial of a woman, of a female, we normally have a cloth spread out. We had said this is to cover or to protect the profile from being seen by the onlookers or the na-mahram. Many a times we start to fan that cloth. There's nothing like that. That's a mystery for me. All these years we've been handling burial, but we will still see people fanning that. I don't know from where that comes. It has become like a system that whenever you have a cloth covering the burial of a female, then you will see people starting fanning that cloth. I don't know where that comes from, because many have asked us. I have said, I don't know. I have checked various hadiths, especially on this burial, and I have not found any hadith with regards to fanning of that cloth. You're saying something?
The attention of the person who is watching inside.
To distract?
To distract you when the cloth is like this. You don't know what you are doing.
No. The cloth has to cover the grave, simple. So that when we are standing outside, we don't peep in. That's it. Sorry?
Number one. But again, maybe there's
If it is hot or something like that, that's something else, okay? That you want to give them some cool air, but why would somebody go down and still feel like cooling himself? That is a place, that is my final resting place. That is an ibrah, that is a lesson for all of us. And if we have that opportunity to go down to bury somebody, then it's one of the best lessons that I've personally first-hand experienced. This is going to be my final resting place. I am going to leave the comforts of my home, the comforts of my bedroom, and I'm going to lay down here finally. So fanning it and trying to cooling it does not make sense at all.
Just like this, you being one of the officials of the
Yes, yes.
For that tradition, I would say, could you please make the cloth a little bit bigger,
Yeah.
overlapping the hole?
That's a good idea.
It's made to measure.
There is a question or the suggestion here that if we have a cloth which is quite wider than the size of the grave,
Overlapping the grave.
so that it overlaps would be better. Yes, it is true that we have, the clothes that are quite slender, maybe the size of the grave only. It's better if we have a cloth which is wider, inshallah, and we will look into it, inshallah. Hassan. The person who is reciting talqeen. Now the requirement here for the person reciting talqeen is he should be standing next to the dead body, put his mouth next to the ear of the dead body and recite. That is the requirement. However, we do recite talqeen at the edge of the grave, above the grave, outside the grave rather, but for a reason. And that reason is not only to make that person who is in the grave to hear, of course we recite it loudly, but also to ensure that those who are present also get a lesson. They understand or they listen to what this talqeen is, and they go home with something out of that burial or funeral procession or burial ceremony. They go home with a lesson that this is what is important and this is what is real. Finally, even I am going to be told who is Allah, what is Allah, who is your Prophet, what is your Quran, what is your book, what is your Qibla. And it is very important that that message reaches everybody. So that is the reason we recite talqeen at the edge of the grave, outside the grave. Then the person who lowers the body inside the grave, like we had the burial yesterday, 2 days before, the person who goes into the grave, these people should go barefooted, barehead, without any kind of ornaments wearing, and they have to ensure that they go in with a lot of humility. The reason for all this is to feel that finally I am going to be in this place. That is a disrespect to the grave, to the dead body or to the dead person if we are going inside the grave embellishing ourselves. All the ornaments, the caps, the shoes, the mobiles, and this mobile, that is funny. One day we were burying somebody, I don't know if I had mentioned in one of my lectures here, and before we started burial, I was about to start talqeen and I hear the person coming out of the grave with his mobile, and he's attending to the call and then going back to the grave. So I don't understand to that extent we can be ghafil of our final abode. That is really serious, that we have really lost the plot. That where is our direction? What are our priorities? Right. When we have the grave completed, covered, constructing the grave normally, we do it after some time once the soil settles. But hadith says that it should not be more than 4 fingers. 4 fingers above the ground. Unfortunately, all the graves, you go in the graveyard, quite high, quite big, quite wide. Somebody, mashallah, would want, this is my grandfather, this is my father, he was special, So you go and build a grave so big, probably the requirement or the area that is given, that is waqf in this graveyard that we have is 6 by 3, for every grave, but he'll go and do something like 10 by, not 10, but maybe 8 by 4 and 8 by big graves you will see. That is makruh. That is not required. It's not haram. But we are not required to build such big graves. We have the shrines only for ulama, only for masumin alayhimus salam, where we attract the zuwar to come there and recite ziyarah, because that has become a markaz, that has become a center of attraction of all the mu'mineen, of all the zuwar. But this is something else. An ordinary person have a simple grave, no need to do such big things. It is makruh to do that. And it's better to have the grave square or rectangle. Most probably it will be rectangle 6 by 3, but having a round something, a building, that is not required. And you will see in the graveyard what we are saying. The simplest of the graves is the best of the graves.
4 inches, no?
Yeah, 4 inches. 4 fingers, not 4 inches, 4 fingers. Right. We have this sprinkling of sand into the, or soil into the grave. and we stop normally the relatives from doing it. The close blood relatives, the son or the brother or the grandson or the nephew. These are close blood relatives of the person. We don't let them sprinkle the soil. It is said, I have not got a hadith, but I have asked ulama, and they say by sprinkling that soil, it makes the heart hard for the relative, very close relative. If he sprinkles the soil into the grave, it makes his heart hard. For him to make his heart soft and to get him solace after that burial, that is the reason hadith says that water has to be sprinkled. So when the close relatives come forward and sprinkle water, that is mustahabat at that time. But sprinkling water on a grave which is 10 years old, 15 years old, I have not heard anything that because by making that grave wet, that is sawab. There is no sawab there. Sprinkling of water is only for a fresh grave, for somebody who has just been buried, for the close relatives to sprinkle that water, to pour that water. For them, they get a lot of sabr, a lot of solace. And when we recite our Fatiha after the burial, the mustahab thing is to recite 7 inna anzalna. Best thing can give the person who is dead 7 times inna anzalna. That is the best gift. And when we recite Fatiha, we should bury our fingers inside the grave. Not that we just sit there, bury our fingers. And hadith says, as long as the finger marks remain on the grave, azab in the grave is removed. So those finger marks are very important. Those are actually stamps of us that we were there at the grave, and the angels who come there ensure that they remove this adab because of that Fatiha or because of the Inna Anzalna that we recite on the grave with our fingers. So that is a mark there. This person will not get adab as long as those finger marks remain in the grave. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.